She was playing the piano until the billionaire came closer and whispered, "I want you to play for me every day, but there's one condition."
The soft sound of piano keys echoes through a nursing home, blending with the smell of weak coffee and disinfectant. Michelle Glass closes her eyes for a moment before playing. It's a silent ritual, almost a prayer. Her fingers touch the lid of the instrument and she whispers, "Thank you," as if the piano were an old friend who never abandons her. The melody that flows from there is simple, but carries something the medications can't offer. The reminder that there's still beauty in the world, even when the mind insists on forgetting. At 29, Michelle has learned to divide her life into measures. In the morning, she walks through white, silent corridors, bringing music to those who no longer recognize their own names. In the afternoon, she rushes to the hospital where her grandmother Louise rests between the present and a distant past. At night, when exhaustion already weighs heavy on her shoulders, she sits at the piano in an intimate bar in the heart of Nashville, under a yellowed light that turns anonymous faces into welcoming shadows. Between one note and another, she jots down melodies on crumpled napkins, as if each idea were a desperate attempt to hold on to time. The routine is exhausting, but it's all she knows, and maybe all she allows herself to know. Because Michelle is afraid, not the obvious fear of bills piling up or the dementia slowly consuming her grandmother, but a deeper, quieter fear of feeling too much and losing again. She's already learned the hard way that loving can be an act of courage or madness, and that sometimes the line between the two is as thin as the sound of a piano string about to break. That's why she keeps people at a safe distance, smiles politely, offers comfort without ever asking for anything in return. It's easier to heal others than to face her own wounds. At the nursing home where she works, there's a woman named Edith who always requests the same song. What a wonderful world. Every time, Michelle plays it with the same dedication as the first. Edith smiles, claps offbeat, and says, "How lovely, dear, play it again." And Michelle plays, because she knows that song isn't just a tune, it's a fragile bridge between who Edith was and what's still left of her. It's also a painful reminder. Memory is cruel, but music is eternal. Or at least it should be.
When she gets home late at night, Michelle finds stacks of bills on the table and a cup of cold coffee she forgot to drink that morning. She sits at the old keyboard she inherited from her grandmother, the same one Louise played when she was young, before dementia stole her memories and replaced them with confused shadows. Michelle plays softly, so as not to wake the neighbors, but also because there's something sacred about the silence of the early morning hours. It's in these moments that she allows herself to feel the longing for what could have been, the weight of carrying everything alone, the secret wish that someone would show up and say, "I'll stay with you." Ryan, her coworker at the nursing home, often says she needs to slow down. "You're going to burn out, Michelle," he warns, with that optimistic smile that seems immune to other people's sadness. She laughs, changes the subject, shifts the melody. Because Ryan is too good, too kind, and she can't afford to care about someone like that. Not now. Not when every penny she earns goes toward keeping her grandmother in a decent place. Not when every note she plays at bars is an attempt to pay off debts that never shrink. Affection is dangerous. Connection is a risk she's not willing to take. But something is changing in the Nashville air, something Michelle hasn't noticed yet. The following Friday, an envelope arrives at the nursing home, an elegant invitation with textured paper and gold lettering. It's for a benefit performance at a private hospital, the kind of event she never imagined attending, much less playing at. Her heart races. It's not the opportunity itself that scares her, but the strange feeling that, by accepting, she's opening the door to something she can't control. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly what her weary soul has been asking for all along. The hospital's white lights reflect off the piano keys as she plays a song about longing. The hall is filled with elegant people, dressed in clothes that cost more than Michelle makes in an entire month. She doesn't feel out of place. She learned long ago that music has the power to level any social difference. When her fingers dance across the keys, she's not just a music therapist struggling to pay bills. She's the voice of something greater, something that touches the soul of anyone who dares to stop and listen. And that night, someone is listening with an attention that borders on devotion. Hunter Stevenson stands at the back of the hall, leaning against a marble column, with a glass of wine he's barely touched. He doesn't talk to anyone, doesn't smile at attempts to approach him, doesn't look away from Michelle for even a second. There's something unsettling about the intensity of that gaze. It's not ordinary admiration, not the superficial interest of someone appreciating a good performance. It's as if he's trying to engrave every note, every movement, every breath of hers somewhere deep in his mind, as if that music were the last thing he would see before the world crumbled. When Michelle finishes her performance, the applause echoes polite and brief. She acknowledges it with a discreet nod, but before she can leave the stage, a deep, firm voice interrupts her. "You play like every note is a farewell." She turns and finds Hunter up close for the first time. He's tall, has deep blue eyes, and a posture that mixes absolute control with a vulnerability he's trying to hide. Michelle doesn't know what to say, because he's right. Every note she plays carries a bit of loss, a bit of longing. "That's how music works," she says, trying to keep it light. "It makes us remember what matters." Hunter smiles sideways, but it's a sad, weary smile. What if you could use music to make sure someone never forgets what matters? The question catches Michelle off guard. She furrows her brow, trying to understand where he's going with this. But before she can answer, he continues. "I need your help, not as a music therapist, as a composer, as someone who understands that music can be the last thing left when everything else is gone." There's urgency in his voice, a contained passion that contrasts with the coldness of his appearance. Michelle feels her heart race, not from fear, but from curiosity. Who is this man who talks about music like someone talks about survival?
He invites her to talk in private, away from the curious eyes and murmurs of Nashville's medical elite. They walk to a reserved room where the light is softer and the sound of the event becomes a distant hum. Hunter wastes no time with preambles. He tells her he owns a medical technology company, that he invests in cutting-edge neurological clinics, that he spent his life building an empire based on science and logic. And then, with the same coldness with which he would present a financial report, he reveals the diagnosis: early-onset Alzheimer's. 40 years old, and his mind has already begun to betray his memory. The doctor said music is one of the last forms of language the brain preserves, and he wants to use it as an anchor before it's too late. Michelle feels the air leave her lungs. She's already seen what dementia does, saw it in her grandmother, saw it in the nursing home patients, but she's never seen it in someone so young, so lucid, so desperately aware of what he's about to lose. Hunter doesn't expect compassion. He expects an answer. The proposal is direct, almost cold. He wants her to compose personalized songs for him, melodies anchored in specific memories he still has. And in return, he'll pay generously, enough to cover all her grandmother's medical debts and ensure she never has to play in bars until the early morning hours again. But there's an unexpected, almost absurd condition. She'll need to pretend to be his fiancée at family and corporate events. "My family can't know about the illness yet," he explains, "and I need someone by my side who understands what's happening." Michelle should refuse, should say it's crazy, that it's risky, that mixing business with something as intimate as memories and music is dangerous territory. But when she looks into Hunter's eyes, she sees something she recognizes: the desperate desire to hold on to what we love before it slips through our fingers. She thinks about her grandmother, the bills, the nights she cries alone in the silence of her empty apartment. She thinks about what it would be like to finally have time to breathe, to create, to live without the constant weight of survival. And then, with the same coldness with which she would present a financial report, he hears her own voice saying, "I accept." What she doesn't know yet is that by agreeing to compose Hunter's memories, she's about to become one of them, perhaps the most important of all.
The sound of an old recording fills the studio, an unfinished melody like a memory trying to hold on. Michelle sits at the grand piano that dominates the center of the room, an instrument so imposing it seems to demand respect before being played. Hunter is beside her, leafing through a worn leather notebook where he's jotted down fragments of his life. Dates, smells, sensations, images he fears forgetting. "My mother used to make coffee every morning at 6 o'clock sharp," he says, and his voice carries a tenderness Michelle never imagined existed behind that controlled facade. The smell would drift up the stairs and wake me before the alarm. I'd come down barefoot, and she'd always say, "Good morning, my love," the same way, every single day. He pauses, closes his eyes. "I need you to turn that into music." Michelle listens to every word as if receiving a sacred secret, because that's exactly what it is. She's not just composing songs, she's translating the essence of a life into notes that will endure when the mind no longer can. Her fingers begin exploring the piano, testing soft, repetitive chords like the morning ritual Hunter described. The melody emerges slowly, almost shyly, with a central theme that always returns, just like the smell of coffee, just like his mother's voice. Hunter closes his eyes, and for the first time since they met, she sees his defenses fall. A silent tear runs down his face, but he doesn't wipe it away. He just listens, as if that music were an embrace he didn't know he needed. The following weeks transform into an unexpected routine. They meet at the studio 3 times a week, sometimes in the morning, sometimes at night, always away from curious eyes. Hunter brings memories, Michelle transforms them into songs. There's a composition for the sound of rain on the tin roof of the house where he grew up, another for the day he closed his first big deal and felt for the first time that he had control over his own destiny, a melancholy waltz for the memory of his father, who died when Hunter was only 12 and left a void that was never filled. Each session is a deep dive into the soul of a man Michelle never imagined knowing, and gradually, she realizes she's beginning to care more than she should. But life outside the studio demands its price. Michelle has to accompany Hunter to formal dinners with the Stevenson family, corporate events full of executives who look at her with barely disguised suspicion, charity galas where she smiles politely while holding his hand as if it were natural. Helen Stevenson, Hunter's mother, is an elegant and ruthless woman who analyzes Michelle's every gesture with sharp eyes. "Where are you from, dear?" she asks during a dinner, and the question carries more than curiosity, it carries judgment. Michelle answers with the truth, that she's a music therapist, that she cares for her sick grandmother, that music has always been her way of understanding the world. Helen smiles, but it's an icy smile. How interesting. The discomfort is palpable, but Hunter squeezes Michelle's hand under the table, a silent gesture that says, "I'm here." Intimacy grows in unexpected ways. During a late-night session, after Michelle finishes composing a melody about the first time Hunter saw the ocean, he asks about her. "What about you? What are your memories?" The question catches her off guard. Michelle is so used to giving that she's forgotten what it's like to receive genuine attention. She talks about her grandmother, about how Louise used to play piano when she was young and taught Michelle to feel music with her heart, not just her fingers. She talks about the loneliness of growing up not knowing if she was strong or just too stubborn to give up. And Hunter listens, really listens, with the same intensity with which she listens to him. For the first time in years, Michelle feels like someone sees beyond the facade she's built, and that scares her as much as it comforts her. Then something shifts. During a rehearsal for another performance, Hunter tries to play one of the compositions Michelle created. His fingers are clumsy, uncertain. He was never a musician, but there's a touching determination in the way he tries. The melody comes out stumbling, full of mistakes, but it carries something Michelle recognizes: surrender. He's not playing to impress, he's playing because he desperately wants to hold on to that memory. "This one," he says, without taking his eyes off the keys, "is my favorite, because it's about the day I met you." Michelle feels the air leave her lungs. She hadn't realized it, but that song, composed almost without thinking during a sleepless early morning, carries the same urgency and the same fragile beauty as that first encounter at the hospital. Hunter finally looks at her, and there's something different in his eyes. Vulnerability, hope, and maybe, just maybe, the beginning of something neither of them knows how to name. That night, when Michelle gets home, she can't sleep. She sits at her grandmother's old keyboard and plays softly, testing variations of the melody Hunter called his favorite. Her fingers tremble slightly, not from exhaustion, but from something far more dangerous: the realization that this is no longer just a job. She's creating songs that not only preserve his memories, but are also beginning to build her own. And when she realizes she's smiling alone in the dimness of her apartment, Michelle understands she's crossed a line she promised herself she'd never cross. But maybe, for the first time in a long time, she doesn't want to turn back.
The studio's dim light, a piano illuminated by lamps, and the trembling sound of Hunter trying to play. It's been 3 months since Michelle accepted the proposal, and what should have been just a professional arrangement has turned into something neither of them can pretend to ignore anymore. Hunter asked her to arrive early that night, said he had something important to show her. When Michelle enters the studio, she finds candles scattered throughout the room, the soft light dancing on the walls as if the space itself were alive. He's standing beside the piano, hands in his pockets, and for the first time since they met, she sees nervousness written all over his face. "I practiced," he says, almost like an advance apology, "but I'm not you." Michelle feels her heart race before she even understands what's happening. Hunter sits at the piano, takes a deep breath, and begins to play. The melody is uneven, full of pauses and hesitations, but Michelle recognizes it immediately. It's the song she composed about the day they met, the one he called his favorite. Only now there's something new. He's added a second voice, a simple harmony that intertwines with the original melody like two hands meeting. His fingers stumble on the keys, but he continues, determined, as if each note were a declaration that words can't express. And then, in the middle of the song, he stops. He turns to Michelle, and his blue eyes shine with a mixture of fear and courage. "I don't know how much longer I'll be able to remember this, but I know that while I can, I want to remember you." Michelle can't breathe. She's seen passion before, felt desire, known love from a distance, but never like this. Never with this raw, desperate intensity that only emerges when you know time is limited. Hunter stands, walks toward her with slow steps, as if each movement were measured. "I love you, Michelle," he says, and the simplicity of that confession is as powerful as any symphony. "I love you for the way you play piano, the way you close your eyes before you begin, the way you turn pain into beauty. I love you because you made me feel like there's still something in me worth remembering." He takes her hand, places it over his chest, where his heart beats rapidly. "And I need you to know that now, because tomorrow I might forget." Tears stream down Michelle's face before she realizes it. She should be rational, should remember that this is dangerous, that she swore to protect her heart after so many losses. But when Hunter pulls her close and rests his forehead against hers, all defenses crumble. "I love you too," she whispers. And it's the first time in years she's admitted that to anyone, maybe the first time she's admitted it to herself. The kiss that follows isn't rushed or desperate. It's soft, deep, filled with a tenderness that only exists when two souls recognize each other. It's the kind of kiss that doesn't need background music, because it is, in itself, a perfect melody. The following days are marked by a fragile and precious happiness. Michelle and Hunter no longer hide what they feel, at least not when they're alone. They spend hours in the studio, but now the composing sessions are interspersed with conversations about dreams, fears, plans for a future they both know is uncertain. Hunter talks about places he wants to see, books he wants to read, experiences he still wants to have. Michelle listens and turns it all into music. But now each composition carries a double weight. It's not just his memory being preserved, but theirs. She composes a song for the first time they laughed together until their stomachs hurt. Another for the night he taught her to waltz in the empty room, stumbling over his own feet but refusing to give up. Each note is a promise that love can exist even when time conspires against it. But the disease waits for no one. Small signs begin to appear, subtle at first, but impossible to ignore. Hunter forgets where he left his car keys, confuses a colleague's name during a meeting, takes a few seconds longer to find the right word during a conversation. He tries to cover it up, smiles and changes the subject, but Michelle sees the panic that settles in his eyes whenever it happens. One night, after a public presentation where he had to check his phone 3 times to remember an important investor's name, Hunter breaks down in her arms. "It's happening," he murmurs, his voice choked. "It's starting and I can't stop it." Michelle holds him tight, as if she could protect him from the inevitable, and whispers in his ear, "Then let's make every moment count. Every second, every note." They create a ritual. Every night, before sleep, Hunter listens to the songs Michelle composed, one by one, while she lies beside him and holds his hand. He closes his eyes and lets the melodies take him back, to the smell of his mother's coffee, to the sound of rain on the roof, to the exact moment he realized he was in love with the woman who turned memories into music. And Michelle, watching his face relax as the music fills the room, understands something fundamental. Love isn't about how much time you have, but about what you do with the time that remains. They don't know how many more days they'll have like this, maybe months, maybe just weeks. But in that moment, with the music enveloping them both like an invisible embrace, Michelle realizes that even if Hunter forgets her name, even if he no longer recognizes her face, a part of him will always know he was loved. And maybe, in the end, that's what matters most.
An elegant crowd at a corporate event. The microphone sound fails, and Hunter's lost gaze fills the hall. Michelle sits in the front row, hands clasped in her lap, trying to maintain composure as she watches the man she loves take the stage to speak about his company's latest advances. He looks impeccable in his dark suit, his posture straight, the confident smile he's always used as armor. But Michelle knows every nuance of that face and sees what no one else notices. The slight tremor in his fingers, the way he grips the speech paper too tightly, as if it were a lifeline. She prays silently that everything will go well, but prayers aren't always heard. Hunter starts strong, his voice firm and clear. He talks about innovation, about the future of neurological medicine, about how technology can change lives. The audience listens attentively, heads nodding in approval. Then, in the middle of a sentence, he stops. The silence stretches for 3 seconds that feel eternal. Michelle sees panic invade his eyes. He's lost his train of thought, forgotten what he was going to say. He looks at the paper, but the words there don't make sense, as if they were written in another language. Excuse me, he murmurs into the microphone, trying to laugh it off. Where was I again? Someone in the audience whispers something. Nervous laughter echoes. Hunter tries to continue, but stumbles over words, confuses data, mentions the wrong name of a project. And then, to Michelle's horror, he asks out loud, "Can someone tell me what year it is?" The murmuring explodes. Whispers turn into open conversations. Cell phones are raised. Discreet flashes capture the moment. Michelle stands instinctively. But before she can reach him, Hunter Stevenson appears out of nowhere, takes the stage with the rehearsed elegance of someone accustomed to controlling crises. My son is recovering from severe exhaustion. We ask for understanding in this difficult time." She guides Hunter off the stage firmly, and he goes too, docile, like a lost child being rescued. Michelle tries to follow them, but a security guard discreetly blocks her path. The message is clear: you're not welcome now. 3 days pass without Michelle being able to talk to Hunter. He doesn't answer calls, doesn't respond to messages. When she goes to his house, the doorman politely informs her that Mrs. Stevenson left clear instructions: no visitors. Michelle feels frustration turn into desperation. She knows what's happening. She's being pushed away, isolated, erased from his life as if she never existed. And the worst part is that she understands why. To the Stevenson family, she's an intruder, someone who appeared out of nowhere and took advantage of Hunter's vulnerability. It doesn't matter that the love between them is real. It doesn't matter that she spent months turning memories into music to protect what's left of his mind. In their eyes, she's just another problem to be solved.
When Michelle finally secures a meeting with Helen, she's received in the Stevenson mansion's living room. A cold environment, decorated with impeccable taste, but without any trace of human warmth. Helen doesn't offer coffee, doesn't beat around the bush. "You need to stay away from my son," she says, her voice controlled but loaded with an authority that accepts no negotiation. "I know your intentions may have been good at first, but now you're interfering with his treatment. The doctors were clear. Hunter needs stability, routine, people he's known for years. You're a variable that complicates everything." Michelle tries to argue, tries to explain that the music has helped, that Hunter asked for this, that their love is real. But Helen raises her hand, interrupting. "Love?" She repeats the word as if it were an abstract concept. "My dear, my son is sick. He doesn't know what he feels, and you, consciously or not, are taking advantage of that." The words are like knives. Michelle feels anger rise in her throat, but along with it comes something worse: doubt. What if Helen is right? What if Michelle, in her desire to help, to love, to be loved, is actually causing more harm than good? She thinks about the nights when Hunter woke up confused, not knowing where he was, and she had to calm him down, gently remind him of reality. She thinks about how frustrated he gets when he can't remember something simple, about how the disease advances relentlessly despite all efforts. And for one terrible moment, she wonders if love is enough when the mind is unraveling. "I'll pay the full amount of the contract," Helen continues, pulling an envelope from her pocket, "and I'll make sure your grandmother's debts are paid off. But in exchange, you need to disappear from my son's life. Now." Michelle takes the envelope with trembling hands. Inside is a check with more zeros than she's ever seen in her life. It's the solution to all her financial problems, the chance to finally breathe without the weight of survival crushing her shoulders. But it's also the price of her absence, the value someone assigns to the love she feels. She looks at Helen and sees, behind the mask of coldness, a terrified mother, trying to protect her son the only way she knows how. She understands. She would do the same for her grandmother. But understanding doesn't make the decision any easier. "I need to talk to him," Michelle whispers, her voice breaking. "Just once. Let me say goodbye." Helen shakes her head. "Goodbyes only make everything harder for both of you. It's better this way." And Michelle realizes with painful clarity that no matter what she does now, the ending has already been written without consulting her. She leaves that house with the check in her pocket and an emptiness in her chest that no amount of money can fill. She goes back to her apartment, sits at her grandmother's piano, and tries to play. But her fingers don't respond. For the first time in years, music has abandoned her. Ryan calls, asks if she's okay, offers company. She hangs up without answering. That night, Michelle makes a decision that defies all logic, all common sense, all the pain she feels. She tears up the check because she realized something fundamental while sitting in that suffocating silence. Love isn't a transaction, can't be bought or sold.
doesn't disappear just because someone ordered it to. And if Hunter is losing the ability to remember, then she needs to be the memory for both of them. She needs to stay, not because it's easy, not because someone allowed it, but because it's the only thing that makes sense in a world that insists on crumbling, even if he never knows who she is again.
A clinic room bathed in soft light. Michelle opens the portable piano and the sound fills the silence. 3 years have passed since that night when she tore up the check and decided that love is worth more than anyone's approval. 3 years of legal battles, closed doors, judgmental looks, but also 3 years of unwavering persistence, of small victories won inch by inch. Michelle managed, through a lawyer who believed in her story, to get the right to visit Hunter as a music therapist, a legal loophole that Helen couldn't completely close. And now, every afternoon at 3 o'clock, Michelle enters that room where the man she loves lives in an eternal present, disconnected from the past they built together. Hunter sits in the armchair by the window, looking outside without really seeing anything. He's 43 years old but looks older, not physically, but in the way his eyes have lost that intensity that once captivated her. When Michelle enters, he turns his head, offers a polite, empty smile. "Hello," he says as he would to any stranger. "Did you come to play for me?" She swallows the lump in her throat, forces a smile, and answers as she always answers. "I did. I have some special songs today." He doesn't remember her name, doesn't remember the studio, the dinners, the nights they slept in each other's arms while the compositions played on loop. But Michelle has learned to live with that, learned that love doesn't need to be remembered to keep existing. She sets up the portable piano in its usual spot, beside the bed. It's a simple keyboard, but one that carries all the melodies they created together. Michelle takes a deep breath, touches her fingers to the keys, and whispers, "Thank you," the ritual she never abandoned. Then she begins to play the first song, the smell of his mother's coffee on childhood mornings. Hunter closes his eyes almost immediately, and something changes in his expression. It's not complete memory, not conscious recognition, but it's as if a deep part of him, hidden where the disease hasn't reached yet, responds to that melody. His fingers drum lightly on the armrest, following the rhythm. A subtle smile appears on his lips. "This one, I know it," he murmurs, eyes still closed. "I don't know from where, but I know it." Michelle continues playing, one song after another. The Rain on the Roof, The First Deal Closed, The Waltz for the Father Who Passed. And then, with a tight heart, she plays the melody Hunter chose as his favorite, the one about the day they met. Her fingers dance across the keys with an emotion she can't contain, each note loaded with everything they lived, everything they lost, everything that still persists despite it all. And something extraordinary happens. Hunter opens his eyes slowly, turns to her, and for a brief moment, maybe 2 or 3 seconds, there's recognition there. Not complete, not clear, but present, like a flash of light piercing through the darkness.
"You," he says, and the word comes out with a certainty that shouldn't exist. "You're important." Michelle feels the tears stream down before she can hold them back. They're not tears of sadness, but of something much more complex. Gratitude, relief, pain and love intertwined inseparably. "Yes," she answers, her voice trembling, "I am." Hunter extends his hand, an almost childlike gesture, and Michelle holds it as if it were the most precious thing in the world. He doesn't say, "I love you." The words probably don't make sense to him anymore. But when his fingers squeeze hers with surprising strength, Michelle knows that's what he's trying to communicate. The language has changed, but the message remains. She finishes playing, and as she does every day, asks if he wants to try. Hunter hesitates, looks at the keyboard as if it were an alien object, but then, guided by something even he doesn't understand, he places his hands on the keys.
Michelle positions her own fingers over his, gently, and together they begin to play. It's clumsy, full of mistakes, but there's a devastating beauty in that moment. Two people playing the same song, one remembering for both. Hunter laughs, a genuine and light sound that Michelle hasn't heard in months. "It's beautiful," he says, amazed. "Did we make this?" She smiles through her tears. "We did. We made a lot of beautiful songs together." When the session ends and Michelle needs to leave, she does what she always does. Kisses her forehead softly and says, "See you tomorrow." Hunter doesn't respond with words, but holds her hand for a few more seconds before letting go. Michelle walks down the clinic hallway with the portable piano under her arm, passes the nurses who already know her by name, and exits to the parking lot where the afternoon sun paints everything golden. She takes a deep breath, letting the air fill her lungs, and for the first time in a long while feels something that isn't exactly happiness, but is close: peace. Because she's finally understood that love doesn't need to be perfect to be real, doesn't need to be remembered to be eternal, and that as long as there's music, as long as there are hands meeting over piano keys, as long as there's a smile that springs from somewhere deep in the soul, there will be hope. And maybe, in the end, hope is the most important melody of all.
Just as Michelle discovered that love can persist even when memory fails, each of us also carries that power of transformation within ourselves. Her story and Hunter's teach us that loving isn't just about remembering. It's about choosing every single day to be present, even when everything seems to conspire against us. It's turning pain into music, loneliness into connection, and fear into courage. Stories like this remind us that it's never too late to believe in true love, the kind that withstands time, illness, and other people's opinions. The love that doesn't require recognition to exist, that doesn't give up when the journey gets difficult, that reinvents itself with every obstacle. Michelle didn't need Hunter to remember her name to know their love was real. She felt it in the way his fingers searched for hers over the piano, in the smile that emerged when he heard the melodies, in the peace that only exists when two souls recognize each other beyond words. If this story touched you, write in the comments, "Love transforms lives." Subscribe to Eternal Romance Stories and experience with each episode emotions that warm the soul and reflections that transform the heart. Here, you'll find stories that prove love is stronger than any adversity, that hope can bloom in the most unlikely places, and that each of us has the power to create memories that last forever, even when everything else fades away.